Your name is no curse, little bird. I just like the taste of it. Have you read Belladonna? Well, I have. I had this on my shelf for quite some time because I got this in one of my fairy loot boxes. But what made me pick it up had been two of my friends who made such stunning cosplays of Signa and Death. So I got curious. It also happened that I saw Adel and Grace at the Bookstock Festival last year. For those who don't know, the Bookstock Festival is a book festival organized by one of our big bookstore chains here in Germany. They invite many great authors. For example, last year they managed to get Cassandra Clare, author of the Shadowhunter series, and Stephanie Garber, who wrote Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart. There are some talks on the stage with the authors and they all sign their books afterwards. As I said, Adel and Grace was there too, and while I have to admit that Belladonna might not have been my most favorite book of all times, when I saw her on stage I thought she was so friendly and funny and just so impressive that I spontaneously decided to go to her reading at my local bookstore in my city, which was held 2 days later. Fast forward to November, when the German publisher of Belladonna announced that there will be a release event for Wisteria, the third book of the series. I thought that this was my sign to make a Signa cosplay and go to this event. So I sat down, did my Pinterest research and came up with a Victorian-inspired design, which also has some Gothic elements to it. The story of Belladonna leans more into a dark aesthetic. Death is a main theme throughout the book. Everyone around Signa keeps dying, and she herself would have died multiple times if it weren't for her inability to die. So yes, she really is unable to die. And she discovers that she has some mysterious powers linking her to Death. And last but not least, Death himself is the love interest. And there's also a murder mystery going on that Signa tries to solve. So yes, you can see Adel and Grace is all in for Death as the main theme of the book. So I knew that I really had to lean more into the darker color scheme with the dress. I also contemplated to use a dark violet color for the fabric of Signa's dress, but I'm also planning to use this dress for a Scarlett Dragna cosplay from the Caraval series. I'm a huge fan of using my stuff for multiple cosplays, so I'm not wearing or using them only once a year or even less, which feels like such a waste sometimes. And since Scarlett and Signa have quite the similar aesthetic, this is a great opportunity to make a 2-in-1 cosplay. This means the dress for Signa had to be red, since Scarlett's signature color is red. Big surprise here with that name of hers. I ordered my fabric from Forge.of.Asteria. I got 10 meters of this gorgeous Duchesse satin. It's a bit more than I actually needed to make this dress, but I will use the leftover fabric to make an overskirt for when I turn this Signa cosplay into Scarlett cosplay. For the underskirt I used a black microfiber satin, which I had in my stash. I plan to use this to remake the dress for my Alina Starkov cosplay from Shadow and Bone. That dress she wears beneath her black kafta that no one ever sees. Surprisingly, I never got around to actually make another dress for her, so I could use this fabric for Signa. The 3 different trims are all from Amazon, and that's pretty much all the material I needed. For the patterns I used the Victorian basic skirt pattern by Black Snail Patterns, and for the bodice I used the Lily bodice patterns by Heloise Ace. I found both on Etsy. I came up with the pattern for the sleeves by myself. I will try and link everything I've used down in the description box. But let's finally get to sewing! I started with making the black underskirt. I thought if I messed this up it wouldn't matter this much because you barely see it anyway. The pattern was easy to print and assemble at home. The instructions were also easy enough to follow. I just struggled with the pencil pleats in the back, and honestly, I'm still not so sure I did them right. The pattern also comes with pockets, which I absolutely adore. There are 6 parts of the skirt in total. I sewed them all right sides facing each other, but left a gap at the top of the seam. There I inserted a gore and hooks and eyes to make the closure. Before I could sew on the waistband, I had to gather the skirt at the waist. I struggled a bit with the pattern instructions here, but I figured out a way that worked out for me. I gathered the pencil pleats first, which was a really satisfying process, to be honest. I made the gathering stitches according to the pattern, and then I just had to pull on the string and watch the magic. So yesterday I finished sewing together those panels of the skirt and of course adding the pockets. In the pattern you're supposed to only do a pocket on one side, but since I just love pockets so much, I had to do it on both sides. So I already pinned the skirt to the waistband, but I think it will be a challenge to sew this on because I'm not so sure I really understand the instructions. I will just do it as best as I can. Yeah, my only hope is, since I'm not going to do an accurate Victorian bustle skirt, I can just do it my way and it will be fine. What bothers me the most are the pencil pleats in the back. I'm not so sure how they are going to go on the waistband because apparently you're only supposed to sew them on one side. I'm not so sure how this is supposed to sit right in the back once it's sewn. But we will see, I guess. Then there isn't that much to do, but still a few time-consuming steps. I have to sew on some hooks to make the closure. I already sewed in the eyelets and it looks so good. I've never sewn in hooks and eyes into the seam, so this is a first and it looks so neat and I love it. In the original pattern you're supposed to double the fabric, do a lining and do some kind of interfacing to strengthen the hem of the skirt. I didn't do that because this isn't supposed to be an accurate Victorian skirt and I don't want to use that much fabric because it's also expensive. So I'm thinking about just taking some modern interfacing, sewing a thin strip to the hem of the skirt and then, well, hemming the skirt and hoping that the interfacing will provide some well-needed structure. So this is my plan for today. And I really hope that I can do the overskirt in the red fabric today and or tomorrow, so I can finish this weekend. I only have this weekend and 2 more weekends to finish the skirt, to finish the whole cosplay before I need it for an event. It's going to be a tight schedule. I really hope I can do it, but I'm confident that I can make the overskirt quicker since I've already done the underskirt and I know the steps by now. So wish me luck. To match the width of the skirt to the width of the waistband, I added 4 pleats facing backwards on each side of the skirt. 2 on the second skirt panel and 2 on the third skirt panel on each side. Then I stitched on the waistband by hand. Since the fabric of my underskirt isn't holding on to any shape at all by itself, I decided to reinforce the hem with some interfacing. This worked well to prevent the train from looking like just a pile of fabric. And it's also a great way to use my leftover scraps of interfacing for this. For the overskirt, I basically repeated all the steps. I just made a cutout in the front to give the dress a more interesting shape and to reveal a bit of the black from the underskirt to add to the dark Gothic aesthetic. But oh well, I didn't like the shape of the cutout at all. The fabric is too stiff to have a soft drape that I required for my design, and the pattern didn't provide much fabric in the front to fall into beautiful pleats anyway. Luckily, I had the genius idea to gather the skirt at the side seams. Do you see the immediate improvement of the shape? But before I could sew the gathered fabric down, I had to hem the skirt and add the trim. Only then I discovered that the golden trim I purchased was an iron-on, so I didn't even have to sew it. I'm not sure if ironing on the trim is a faster way than sewing it on, but it is undeniably relaxing and there are absolutely non-visible stitches. I love it. So now I could finally gather the skirt at the side seams and voila, the skirt is done. So onto the bodice. So I just finished making a mock-up for the bodice. I think I have to do some small adjustments. For my taste, the neckline is just a bit too low. I have to add an elastic, but I think the armhole for the back is a bit too forward. And I think I can't really move my arms back like this. We will see if I can do anything about that. I think with everything else, I'm pretty happy. Okay, I ditched my shirt to see what the bodice actually looks like and to see the actual fit of this, because it's a bit different now. I also got my ring light so you and I both can see what we're actually talking about. I think it's actually meant to sit a bit higher, like this would be my fit, so I think what will be absolutely necessary to alter is that I make it longer. I want this to sit higher and I have to take down the curve of my chest. It's somewhere sitting up here and I need it here. I actually made this 1 or 2 sizes too small, probably just 1, but I wasn't sure about the measurements when I bought this pattern, so I purchased the pattern with the smaller sizes and then I figured out that I actually needed a bigger one. But this doesn't seem to be a problem because I just went with the size 10, the biggest size of the pattern that I got, and yeah, I can very well close this in the back. It's just pinned together in high hopes that I won't be stabbing myself. At the waist, they are still, I don't know where this is coming from, but there's still plenty of room and I'm not so sure this is how it's supposed to be. Now I'm off to get myself some dinner to survive this weekend and then let's see which changes I can make. I made a second mock-up with these changes and it fit quite nicely, so I was able to cut my fashion fabric. I also took apart the mock-up and used the pieces as the interlining for the bodice. For the boning channels I used leftover bias tape, so the insides of the bodice look a bit Frankensteinish. I thought about not making a lining for the bodice to save myself some time, but after creating this monster here, I needed to do the right thing and cover up the insides. So on to cutting out and sewing the bodice pattern one final time. I sewed the lining onto the outer layer, along the sides and the top. After turning the bodice inside out, this created wonderful finished edges along the sides and the top. For the bottom edge, I made some bias tape and sewed it on to hide the raw edges. Before I could work on the sleeves, I had to add a closure to be able to wear the bodice. I chose to add eyelets in the back to insert lacing. Now I was able to put on the bodice and measure the length of the elastics I needed for the sleeves. Then I made 2 casings of fabrics that were roughly double the size of the elastics and sewed down the edges of the elastics. Next I sewed the casing to the bodice. Doesn't this look nice? And just look at the arm movement the elastic grants me. I absolutely love this about the pattern. But most parts of the sleeves are still missing, so I sat down and made a pattern. I used a basic 3/4 long sleeve pattern and cut off a bit of the shoulder since my dress is shoulder free. Then I cut the pattern into 3 pieces and put the middle piece aside, since this would remain unchanged. I cut the top and bottom parts of the pattern into multiple stripes and spread them out to create puffed sleeves. I am by no means an expert in pattern making, so I really felt the urge to make a mock-up. And it worked. This means I could continue making the real sleeves. I prepared the top and bottom pieces by making gathering stitches along the top edges, where the fabric would be gathered later. Then I sewed little darts at the bottom edges to create a more interesting shape than the sleeves would get if I just gathered the fabric here as well. Not that this choice would make much of a difference, but at least I know what I did there. Then I gathered the top edges with the help of the gathering stitches I made earlier and simply sewed all 3 pieces together. I added bias tape along the bottom edge and noticed that I forgot to iron on the golden trim I wanted to place on the middle part of the sleeve. But I learned from my mistake and added the trim to the second sleeve before I sewed that one together as well. Then I inserted the sleeves in the armholes of the bodice, which was a bit tricky because of the elastic, but the result looks so good. And the best part? We have a dress! Now comes the fun part, decorating. I sewed the black lace trim around the bottom and top edge of the bodice. I also added a bit of the lace to the neckline to give myself a better feeling of security. I also sewed the golden flower trim on top of the lace at the top, but to keep the elasticity of the sleeves, I separated the flowers and sewed them down individually around the shoulders. There's one more step left to finish the cosplay. Styling the wig. Luckily, I already own a black long lace front wig. Last time I used it for Alina Starkov from Shadow and Bone, so first I had to remove the hairpiece, the bun and the braids. And no wonder I always run out of hairpins. There must have been at least 20 of them inside that wig. I straightened the wig to work from a clean base and pulled back some strands from the front to make a little ponytail. I then twisted the ponytail around itself and made 2 braids, which I then twisted around the ponytail as well. I ended up pushing down the bun quite a bit since I made it a little too high on the back of my head. The rest of the hair was simply curled. I only took 2 curls from the front and twisted them around the bun as well. And then I was happy with the hairstyle. I added a golden hair clip to the back and 2 flowers I previously made from the leftover red fabric. With that, Signa is actually done. I just didn't have time to make a full cosplay test before the Wisteria release event, but I had trust that everything would work out in the end. And it did. But oh boy, the day of the event had been so chaotic. It started with me getting on the train and realizing I forgot to pack my blonde wig. The blonde wig I promised to bring my beautiful friend, who I convinced to cosplay Blythe, Signa's cousin from the books, and to join me in the event. And I left her without a wig. But luckily we have another friend who lives in Munich and who proved to be a real lifesaver and an absolute hero by providing us with one of her blonde wigs. But the little detour we had to take to get the wig cost us almost 2 hours. So we were left with 1 hour at our hotel to get ready, to do our home makeup and get into costume. And while getting ready, I also realized I ordered the wrong contact lenses. Signa has 1 blue eye and 1 golden eye. And I already have blue contacts and I ordered amber colored contacts to use for the golden eye. So far so good, but remember, I didn't do a cosplay test before, so I used the new golden contact lenses the first time while I was getting ready for the event. And yeah, turns out they're actually circle lenses, so they are much bigger than the blue ones. So I had 1 big eye and 1 regular sized eye, which made me look like a demon. I ended up using only the blue lens and leaving my other eye the dark brown color that it is. But this also left me with 1 contact lens with prescription and 1 eye with blurry eyesight. It was okay for the duration of the event. I could handle that. Don't ask me how, but we actually did it. We arrived just in time at the bookstore where the event was held. We were greeted at the bookstore cafe with a welcome drink and the most beautiful cupcakes I've ever seen. We also met 2 other cosplayers who were wearing absolutely gorgeous looks inspired by Death and Signa, and so many more lovely people. Me and my friend Leah received so many compliments regarding our cosplays, and we had so much fun just enjoying the company of the other guests already. But there was more to the event. We were able to choose between 2 workshops. With one workshop you could make your own flower crowns, and the other one we actually choose was about decorating your own candles. We could use beautiful stones, flower petals and glitter. And of course Leah and I really overdid it with the glitter. But what can a girl do? Next we all went upstairs, where a stage had been set for the voice actors of the German audiobook of Asteria. They read 3 little scenes from Asteria and I was completely enchanted with their voices and the story.
Die Ringe sollten an ihren Bund, an ihre Ehe erinnern, bei der sie beide eine Rolle zu spielen hatten.
Das Tragen. Lauf doch selbst auf deinen Edelslipper. Blythe musste ihre Zunge hüten und deutete auf den leuchtend goldenen Faden, der sich zwischen ihren Ringen spannte.
Adele Grace also made a short appearance for an interview and to tell us a bit about Holly, her upcoming Christmas novella that is also set in the world of Belladonna. Afterwards we went back downstairs where we had another drink and took a couple more pictures at this gorgeous photo spot. Then it was already time to say goodbye to everyone and make our way back to the hotel. I had so much fun at the event and I'm so thankful for my friend Leah who accompanied me. Now I can rest for a bit and then resume working on this dress to turn it into a Scarlett cosplay. I'll be wearing it on the 1st of March for my first ever fantasy ball. I am beyond excited and of course I will take you with me while I sew the overskirt for Scarlett and dance at the ball. So, I see you next time. Your name. Your name is no curse, little bird.